Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy, here for the Daily Blob, trying to explain to all the kids out there why things like politics matter in the world of technology. Now, before we get into the main story today, I want to share with all of you my major win yesterday. I went to the doctor for my yearly physical that I haven't actually had in about 3 years, and I won the lottery. I get to poop in a box. She was sitting there, she was telling me my options, and I was like, do I get the poop in a box option? And she said, yes, you can poop in a box. And I went, yes, I will take the poop in the box option. So if you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about right now, be happy that you're young. And if you do know what I'm talking about right now, I won the poop in the box. That's right, boys and girls. When you're young, you think you're going to grow up to be a superhero, astronaut, president. And when you actually do grow up, you get happy that you get the poop in the box option. Oh, I give you reality, boys and girls. I give you reality. So anyways, I think this is interesting coming out of the Trump administration again. So we've seen the attacks on China for quite a while now. Again, we've seen it through the Obama administration. We've seen it through the Trump administration, the Biden administration, the Trump administration again. And we are seeing that the Trump administration is now basically doubling down on the attacks against China, basically truly trying to make China our adversary. Again, let me just tell you, as an American, I don't know any American who's that scared of China. No American that I know of looks at China as the enemy. But again, we're not the ones that actually control our military apparatus. It's the politicians. And it's kind of funny how our politicians are doing things that most Americans literally don't want to do. But anyways, right, we've been having this whole anti-China thing, and I've been talking about how the anti-China thing is going to affect folks in the tech industry. Again, when you try to basically ban TikTok, essentially for propagandic purposes, this is going to damage the trust foreign folks have with doing things like investing in the United States. It's a real significant concern. When you try to chuck out 277,000 Chinese students, not only are you getting rid of that amount of economic drive or economic activity, but things that you have to be thinking about. Again, if you're in a computer science program right now, if you're in a computer engineering program right now, and you look around at the fellow students in your classroom, and a lot of them, don't look like you, or don't look like me, I suppose, there's a real question about what are the chances that your university might fold because they lose a major chunk of their students, right? This is something to actually be concerned about. Again, 145% tariff rates. If you're going to be buying equipment, again, computers, all this stuff comes from China, right? And so if you double the cost of that equipment, that is going to cause real issues, right? So one of the things along with this is the problem that we get into in the modern world is that the modern world is very complicated, right? When you deal with a business, one of the issues you run into is something called regulatory burden. And basically what regulatory burden is all the laws that you have to abide by, right? So all of these politicians out there that are getting paid from your tax money, right? They don't have to worry about actually making revenue or profit or anything else. They'll just grab the tax money out of your pocket. Anyways, they go out there and they put all these regulations onto businesses. Some of the regulations are good. Some of the regulations are bad. A lot of the regulations are just wonky. It's not necessarily that they're bad. They're just implemented asininely poorly, right? That type of thing. And that's the thing that you have to worry about as a business is, again, when you have this regulatory burden on you, how is that going to affect you and being able to push your business forward? One of the curious things we get into with the technology world, especially with hardware, right? A lot of people don't think about it anywhere. Those node developers don't think about it, but all the code actually runs on hardware. right, is a lot of this hardware has to be tested, and it actually has to be certified, especially when it comes to radio frequencies, right? So if you look at, again, even something like this, you have the Wi-Fi stack on there for TCP/IP. You have the Bluetooth stack on there. You may have other RF stacks on here. And those RF stacks and the RF hardware has to be certified to verify that it won't screw around with other RF signals that are going to be in the environment. Again, in this modern world where we use a lot of our radio frequency, everything from television to radio, to just normal radio, to telephone systems, to computer systems, all kinds of different things. And basically there's testing and certification processes to make sure that your little electronic device isn't going to screw with other RF signals in the area. And the interesting thing now is basically there's a process for getting equipment certified, and surprise, 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 there are a lot of institutions, organizations, companies in China that have been part of that certification process, right? So basically, if you're getting hardware built and manufactured in China, it just makes sense to get that equipment certified in China where it's at, as long as it hits all the technical specifications, everything gets checked off on, and then you get to buy your device. Well, the problem in this modern world is when you decide Chinaman is evil. Chinaman is evil. Again, when you look at 277,000 students being trying to remove from the United States, notice in that thing that the State Department put out, it said Chinese students, that they will aggressively go after Chinese students and members of the Chinese Communist Party. It wasn't that they would aggressively go after members of the Chinese military and members of the Chinese Communist Party and students if they were involved. They literally just said, what do you have to do to get punished by the Trump administration if you're in the United States? Be a Chinese person who's a student in university. How dare you pay our country an exorbitant amount of money to go to our schools to get education? If that doesn't prove what a nefarious bastard you are, I don't know what will. All right. So anyways, again, in this type of environment, right, with the resurgence of yellow peril ideals in a senile old loser whose experience in business is basically bankrupting them, we have this mindset that China people are bad. Again, I talked about this before with racism, and again, it is weird. I feel like I was foreshadowing, right? Because I've been talking this whole Chinaman bad thing. I've been talking about it being racism. And a lot of people say, it's not racism, Eli. You don't understand. The China people and the Chinese Communist Party, that's two entirely different things. This is anti-Chinese Communist Party, not anti-Chinaman. So ergo, it's not racism. But again, if you start looking at the actions as we go along, again, like I say, with that whole State Department directive, no, it is against Chinese students. Period. So anyways, right, so we've got this mindset. So now, basically what's happening is we have from the FCC, and this is one of those squirrely things that could cause a lot more damage than you realize. Again, I think about this with when the Great Recession happened, how a lot of things went sideways in ways we didn't expect. I think about this with COVID, how things went sideways in ways we didn't expect. And this is the kind of thing that I think might go sideways. Again, this whole anti-China thing, the senile old loser in the presidency thinks he has control over any of this stuff. But I do wonder how weirdly this could end up sliding. So FCC bans, quote, bad labs from U.S. equipment authorization process. So this is actually from May 22nd. This slipped through my radar because it seems like some banal regulations. Eli, who wants to worry about banal regulations? It doesn't have anything to do with me as a technology professional. Well, again, right this second, it might not, but as the dominoes fall. So this is from the FCC itself. You go to docs.fcc.gov, blah, 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 and you can find this thing. New rules complete a bipartisan push to remove and block untrustworthy actors from control of equipment test labs, accreditation, and certification bodies. Washington, May 22nd, 2025. The FCC today adopted new rules to block and remove Chinese government and other untrustworthy actors' ability to assert control over America's wireless equipment authorization process. The rules will ensure that the hundreds of equipment test labs and telecommunications certification bodies, entities that test, review, and certify wireless electronic devices for importation, marketing, and sale in the U.S. do not have ownership interests that present national security risks, including the risk that they would do the bidding of a foreign adversary. And again, notice, we have been at war with China because we have always been at war with China. Notice how they keep hammering this whole adversary crap day in and day out. China, man, ain't my adversary. If you're in Taiwan, I get why you're worried about China. If you're in South Korea, I get it. If you're in Japan, I get it. If you're in India, I get it. If you're in the United States, don't care. Again, I am all for selling Taiwan as much military equipment as they want to buy. I think we should sell Japan as much military equipment as they want to buy. That doesn't mean that China is my adversary. But you'll notice, right, they keep hammering home the idea that China is our adversary. China is our enemy. Why is China our enemy? Obviously, you know why China's our enemy. If you don't think China is our enemy, well, then you're a traitor. We're going to get to that point. Probably not too far away, right? The FCC requires all electronic devices that emit radio frequencies, including IoT devices, computers, fitness trackers. Now think about all this equipment, right? IoT, computers, fitness trackers, network gear, smartphones, and baby monitors to be authorized for use in the U.S. Each year, private entities known as test labs and telecommunications certification bodies test tens of thousands of these devices and certify that they comply with various FCC rules, respectively. Accreditation bodies assess the test labs for competency and impartiality. Now think about these numbers here, right? So they're talking about hundreds of equipment test labs. So hundreds of equipment test labs that certify tens of thousands of devices every year. And now Trump, with the precision of a 3-year-old with a baseball bat, is going to go into the system and snip out the bad labs. Telecommunication certification bodies, accreditation bodies, and some test labs must be recognized by the FCC to perform these functions in the agency's process. However, prior to these new rules, the agency's eligibility criteria has been primarily based on technical competence. Holy crap! You mean before Trump, our government cared about technical competence? I mean, that is one thing you will not get out of the Trump administration. They will not abide by technical competence. Not trustworthiness. I mean, they may be technically competent, but if they're not on their knees groveling to the senile baby, then can we really trust them? While the agency has in recent years barred entities on the FCC covered list from having their devices approved for use in the U.S. due to determinations that such devices pose national security risks. So the idea here is there's an FCC covered list, barred companies from selling equipment in the U.S. if they're on that list. Companies like Huawei. Huawei bad. Why Huawei bad? Because it's bad. Anyways, so you get put on this list, you can't sell equipment into the United States. But that's not good enough. These new rules ensure that the accreditation certification bodies and test labs are themselves not untrustworthy actors. The FCC, and one of the things to be thinking about with these kind of certification labs, again, basically it's, does the equipment broadcast on the frequency that it's supposed to broadcast? Is there any additional interference or whatever that these equipment sends out? right? When it does the communication, does it do all the handshakes and everything that it's supposed to do appropriately? That type of thing, right? It's very technical. Does the RF equipment live up to the standards that are required for the RF equipment to live up to? That's what these bodies do. Right? The FCC has reviewed currently recognized labs and found that a number of the labs potentially have deep ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Again, think about that. Potentially and then deep ties. So we don't necessarily have proof of any of this, but we're going to make a very strong assertion here. These include entities that are connected to Chinese state-owned enterprises involved in China's military civil fusion apparatus through their apparent work with the CCP's People's Liberation Army. And again, through their apparent work, and even entities that are themselves Chinese state actors. These labs have tested thousands of devices bound for the U.S. market over the last several years. Okay. Again, you have to understand, this is just testing. Does the RF equipment do what the hell the RF equipment is supposed to do? In addition to the covered list, the new rules rely on official security determinations that the U.S. government has made, including the Defense Department's list of Chinese military companies and Department of Commerce entity list, action by the Commission, blase, blase, blase. So this is one of those things that looks good. It looks good. Trump is being tough on China, man. But is also asinitely stupid at the exact same time. So these certification bodies do. Again, all this stuff, like I say, the Bluetooth stack. Whatever frequency Bluetooth is supposed to operate on, does your Bluetooth stack operate on that frequency? Is the power, so again, you can crank up the power on these things. Is the power at the level that it's supposed to be so it doesn't interfere with other things? Is the power high enough? Is the power high as it's supposed to be? Again, is there any stray signals, any of that kind of stuff? That's what these certification bodies do. And so the curious thing here is that there's a concept here that is interesting as far as national security is concerned. I would highly question if this is a good way of going about doing anything, right? Because basically, this is kind of like if somebody certified light bulbs or whatever else. And so if you can show that the certification bodies are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Hey, look, we've been getting Bluetooth equipment in from China, and that Bluetooth equipment has been screwing with the emergency broadcast system. Right? That is a national security concern, right? And we're getting the Wi-Fi equipment in, and the Wi-Fi equipment in is screwing with people's telephones, right? That's basically the testing, right? But that's not what we're hearing here. What we're hearing, again, is this whole national security concern. And basically the idea is, what if Chinaman backdoors the equipment, right? What happens if they're like the NSA? Remember with the NSA, again, this was hilarious. So the NSA literally intercepted Cisco networking equipment that was going from the vendor to the end user. They opened the boxes for the Cisco equipment, they opened the equipment itself, and they literally soldered components in to the Cisco equipment so that they could spy on the end user. They then sealed everything up so it did not even look like it had been touched at all, and this went into end user facilities so that the NSA could spy on them, right? And that's basically the concern here. What if China, man, does what we do? Anyways. The issue here is, if I solder a chip onto this device, and let's say that chip then tries to phone home, right? It's a keylogger. Once it detects a network connection, it will try to phone home. Here's the thing. If you're looking at these testing facilities or whatever, as long as your Wi-Fi stack works appropriately, it's still going to pass all the tests. Right? Because as long as that key logger doesn't screw with the RF frequencies, doesn't screw with the RF power, doesn't screw with a whole bunch of other things, then your Wi-Fi stack is doing what the fuck it's supposed to do. Ergo, it's not going to be detected by this kind of thing. And why this becomes interesting, again, is China produces all of this stuff. China produces all of this stuff. If China wants to start soldering compromises onto this equipment, One, this regime is not going to detect that. And two, we are wholeheartedly screwed, right? Again, think about all the laptops, all the computers, all the smartphones. Again, even when you look at a device like this, again, this is a Raspberry Pi 5, all of these things on here are all actually individual little components that get soldered on. So if you have a real engineer, a real person knows what's going on, and they can just add a little component here or there and ship that out on 100,000, a million devices, that is the real concern. But, and again, this is what we don't see out of the Trump administration, right? The Trump administration is about punishment and about destruction. It's not about building. And we see this time and time and time again. So, in the United States, are we going to get a validation program for hardware? Right? Are we in the United States going to see Border Patrol or Customs or whatever basically pull a random number of electronic devices out of shipments coming from China and literally pull the entire damn things apart in order to find compromises? No, because that would be building a system, and that's not what this administration does. Right? Are we going to be seeing more from the government basically on how to build better security for our infrastructure? Again, so even if devices are compromised, that doesn't really matter so much. Again, that's one of the things I talk about with things like layered security, right? So even if this piece of hardware is compromised and it has a keylogger on it that tries to phone home, right? If my firewalls are set up properly with my institution, this device should not be able to phone home. And if it does try to phone home, the logs should capture the fact that it tried to phone home. I should get an alert on my single pane of glass to say, hey, this Raspberry Pi keeps trying to contact China, man, for some reason. You might want to go take a look at it, right? Are we going to see anything like that from the government, basically telling us what to do and how to make systems better? Again, are we going to get certifications for our organizations? Again, we see these hospitals getting attacked with ransomware and the rest of it. We see so many institutions. Where is the government certification program for hospitals? Now, again, I'm an old school IT person. I don't like a lot of regulation, right? I am not saying that the government should have an IT certification program for your local hotel, right? Or your local dry cleaner or a small 50-person business. But think about this. Where is the government certification and accreditation program for cybersecurity for hospitals? Right? For necessary services or whatever in the United States. Where is the certification program to show that their systems are up to snuff? We don't have it. Right? So what is this good for? What this is good for is this is good for showing the people that have no goddamn clue how technology works and say, look, we're being hard on the Chinaman. We ain't gonna let the Chinaman certify our RF equipment because we don't trust them. At that exact same time, they're still gonna be building all of our shit. Oh. Anyways. So this is the latest thing. Again, I'll be curious to see. This is one of those things. It's kind of like, I follow Nerdrotic and I follow Critical Drinker a little bit. There was the writer's strikes. I think it was last year or a year or two ago. And anyways, when the writer's strikes happened, Nerdrotic, a lot of these TV movie critics were screaming about how this was going to destroy Hollywood. Like, look, you're just getting out of the COVID crisis. There's already a hell of a lot of economic issues, and now you're going into 2 back-to-back strikes. Like, this is going to damage Hollywood, right? And then the writers and the actors were like, rah, right? We deserve, right? We deserve. And now it's like a year or so later, and Hollywood's falling the fuck apart. Right? Again, you can just go take a look, and Hollywood. What is it? The production in Hollywood is now down to only 20% of everything that's actually produced. You have actors saying that it's literally cheaper to go all the way to Ireland in order to film something than film something in like one studio away, right? And that's one of the things with this kind of stuff is it takes a time. Again, like with business and process, things take time to fail and show that you have problems. And so when you sit here and you listen to this and you're like, okay, well, bad labs are going to be eliminated from the authorization process, today, tomorrow, next month, 6 months from now, you're probably not really going to notice much of an issue. Who the hell cares? Oh, just Eli being la again. But the issue is, again, think about this. Hundreds of testing facilities, tens of thousands of pieces of equipment going through every year. What happens as this process goes through 6 months from now, a year from now, right? All of this kind of stuff that we're very used to being able to get our hands on relatively easily. What happens when the testing regime basically just comes to a halt? Or becomes very, very difficult. Basically, gets a backlog. Because one of the things you'll notice here is, again, they're not talking about funding for additional testing in the United States. They're not talking about spinning up additional U.S. testing facilities or things like that. Again, it's about punishment. It's about destruction. It's not about building. So this is another of the many issues we are currently dealing with in the United States. Oh, it took the people in this country hundreds of years to build. One senile old bastard is speed running the destruction of. So we'll see how it goes. So what do you think about this with the FCC banning bad labs from U.S. equipment authorization process? Again, what do you think about this when they say bad labs? Again, to quote, the FCC has reviewed currently recognized labs and found that a number of labs, quote, potentially have deep ties to the CCP. Again, it's not even that they do have ties to the CCP or whatever else. It's just potentially. Again, on national security grounds, they're stripping away any concept of due process. The argument for dealing with the United States, again, right or wrong, the argument for dealing with the United States versus dealing with China, right? In China, it's a communist dictatorship. They can change things on a whim. That's the argument, right? The argument for dealing with the United States is we are a country of laws. They may be imperfect laws, but they are laws. Again, what we're seeing with this administration is they don't give a damn about the laws. Again, any kind of loophole they can use, any kind of way around things they can use, again, so that they can simply say, potentially. I think in my senile, crazy, cowardly mind that possibly that thing might be a danger, ergo. And again, we're 5 months. We're 5 months into this administration. So anyways, what do you think about this? What do you think about the RF certification process? What do you think about them going after the Chinese organizations that have been authorized by the FCC because of technical competence? Right? They're not even arguing that. They're not arguing that they're not technically competent and haven't been doing their job. What do you think about them going after that? And basically saying only the companies that are trustworthy will be able to do this work. And again, when you look at the Trump administration, what do you think trustworthy means? How much Trump coin do you have to own to be trustworthy? I guess is the question for the modern world. So anyways, put your thoughts down below. Tell me in your experience when you've gone to the doctor, have you gotten the poop in the box? Is poop in the box half as exciting as I think poop in the box is? Like she told me about it. She's like, okay, what I want you to do is you're going to get the box, you're going to open the box, you're going to read the instructions. And she's like, I want you to put the box in the bathroom. And when you wake up in the morning, I just want you to go and I just want you to poop in the box and then you ship the box out that day. I was like, wow, that sounds wonderful. Have you pooped in a box? Is the poop in the box experience as exciting as I think it's going to be? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. See y'all later.